We good?
Yeah, we're good.
Oh, we're good. We're live. Okay. So this is a project that I call 30 from 1. So what we're going to do is a single object study, and we're going to make 30 drawings from that and complete this overall project from one object. And so in this single object study, bending the code rules doing this. What we want to do today is get as prepared as we can for the paper and get your minds wrapped around this. So we're going to make 30 drawings, 10 sets, basically a week, give or take, how you guys individually work this out. The first 10, or the first set of 10, are going to be taking that object and drawing the whole of the object representationally with whatever media that you want. So if you absolutely hate charcoal, that's fine, you have to use it. If you love pen and ink, whatever, I would recommend doing a variety of media explorations of the single object. 10 of those. These are 6" by 6" drawings, so they're very small. But we'll look at it from every vantage point, twist it and turn it, light it or not. The second 10 are individual parts or elements of design from that object. So we're going to deconstruct it and draw the parts of it. The last 10 will be a reconstruction of parts of those. So we'll put the object away and use those first 2 to layer or reconstruct a design. This is very good for all of the disciplines. Graphic designers, this is a great way to think about product design or advertisement. For studio artists, this is a great way to think about deconstructing and reconstructing and layers of meaning, etc., etc. So in this handout, this is and then the final, so we'll have 3 sets of 10. The final display of this will be to make a grid that is 5 by 5 and lay out the way that, maybe not the best of the drawings, but the 25 of those 30 that look the best together in this grid pattern as a final piece. So this is a piece by Terry von Beckstoven. She graduated a few years ago. I've been doing this about 10 years now. And this is an ice cream scoop from her house. So the object doesn't need to be like this glorious, like amazing thing. The imagination that you bring to it is what is going to make a great product. So all of what I just said is outlined here on this handout sheet. So, but I do want the premise of this, and I think this is really important as you all move forward in your degree paths. The artist's job is to reevaluate or reintroduce the world to those who encounter our creative works, right? So what we create, our art and design, helps people reevaluate what they just come to know as, oh, it's this thing, until an artist comes along and gives them a different, new way to look at it, and that's what we're doing here. So that is all lined out here should you have more questions. And I included a couple of more projects from more recent student work. Emily Halberg, this work from last year, did a fantastic wine opener project. Most of hers are pencil drawings and some pen and ink. She liked ink and brush. She liked using the ink and brush. So you'll also see that there's a variety of papers used there, and on Terry's on the first page as well. Different kinds of papers. Of course, if you're going to do some with watercolor and some with graphite, you'll probably want a different paper for those different ones. This last one, Clara Sherwin's. Clara is obsessed with clowns and terrified of clowns. I'm like, okay, Claire, go for it. She did a bunch of clowns in different ways, and she got really interested in having a wide variety of papers. So she's got some black papers and off-white papers and stuff in there too, which helps in this final design. It helps to triangulate, so to speak, the different colors of paper across that grid pattern that's created by laying out those 5x5s. So it at first sounds rather intimidating, but when you break it down into its parts, it's actually a pretty fun project and challenging. One of course, the most important things to do is to choose a good object, and some objects are better than others. So as much as you might love your cell phone, it's not a terribly interesting object to look at. It's not interestingly designed in that way. Apple makes a beautiful iPhone, the way that it feels, the weight of it in your hand. Most of the interest in the design, though, is in the interactivity of it. So that is a form that is probably not the best to approach it with. I had a student recently insisted on doing his Rubik's Cube, thinking that you could, but we're not dealing with color, so that kind of sucked, right? And I'm like, all right, if you can do, because I never know, some people can do interesting things with simple objects. There's not enough there to play with. So I brought in a bunch of stuff to talk about. So this could be an interesting object because it can be changed and moved. When I'm drawing the whole of this object, this mannequin, that could be interesting, but when I get down to the parts, the facets of it aren't that interesting, right? The arm and the segmentation of it, there's just not a whole lot here to be creative with. This is an old Swingline staple gun that I got from my mentor for building canvases with, and this has got a really cool overall shape, positive and negative shape, and I can look at this whole object from many different vantage points. There's some really interesting typography on this object. When I deconstruct it into parts, I can find lots of interesting things. So this might be a good option. Plus, this was my mentor's. This is older than me, right? This is my mentor's. He made art from this, and so I've got this psychological connection to it that's really interesting. This is this is called Pounce Powder. This is an old graphic designer and illustrator and mechanical drawing tool. This is for sort of erasing and keeping things dry. The overall object isn't that interesting, but man, the typography on it kicks butt. This is amazing typography. So I probably wouldn't choose this unless I had a lot of time to draw type, and that was my main interest. This toy could be awesome. I could take it apart and move it around. And it's got some lettering and stuff in here that's cool. Let's see, this old Leatherman tool is awesome. I can take it apart, move it around, pull out the different blades and screwdrivers and stuff, so I've got lots of different options with that. As I do, I did some tree trimming over the weekend, and this object could be pretty cool. And if I really had a bunch of time, I stole this from my wife this morning. She was like, "What are you doing with her little Debbie figurine from her yoga room?" This is an extremely complicated little object and has a bunch of individual design facets on it. This, if I wanted to dedicate the time to drawing this in different light and shadow, or this could be a really fun object. But it is a complicated object. So in the end, what you want is something multifaceted, hopefully has some meaning for you, and is something that you can take apart and put back together in many different ways. And that you want to spend the next, I don't know, we're going to spend 15, 20 hours maybe on this over the next 3.5 weeks. So if you are bored with your object after a half an hour, you're probably going to hate every single minute of this. So find something that is a little bit fascinating for you. After you have your object, and you think about your object and you have that, or before, you want to begin to cut paper. And I'm not going to demonstrate cutting paper for you because you're all very intelligent young people. But I've got paper here you could use. I have some watercolor paper somebody left around, some stuff that would work well that's textured for graphite and smooth for inking. So if you don't have the kind of paper that you want, acquire that. And if it's not here, acquire it. You can get, if you go to Hobby Lobby or Michael's, they have craft paper sections for craft book making. Then that paper is pretty cheap, and it comes in like leaves and stuff in it. The paper quality itself can lend it a big help to maybe the object and interest in the object that you're doing. One thing that you want to do as you prepare for this, spend some time cutting the paper so that it's 6 inches by 6 inches square. I've had some terrible, wonderfully drawn images on terribly cut paper. And paper's just wonk, and it destroys the craftsmanship and quality of the overall project. So spend some time on all of these layers of the project. Starting today, and I know you don't have your objects yet because I'm sort of like putting this on your plate in a very all of a sudden type of fashion. So if you want to spend the day like getting paper prepped, or if you live close enough, you know the object that you want to do, and you want to get feedback on that from any of your classmates, you could run and grab that during class. But yeah, let's get started getting prepped as much as possible. Through this week, I would like for you to get a good start drawing these objects. You know, we need 10 of each, so 10 this week, 10 next week. Then it's Thanksgiving, and you might want to work over Thanksgiving, and then we have a week and a half after that to finish things up. So, is there any questions on anything? The whole. The parts are reconstructed. Thank you for asking, because that's a bit confusing. So if we look at Terry's, this drawing here, this set of drawings, you can see that, let's pick like this one for example, right here. That is the whole little ice cream scoop, right? And this one is also the whole ice cream scoop. This drawing right here is just the spring. So she focused in on just the part. So this would be a part of the second 10. A part of the second 10 also would be like this gear. She just drew that gear part. And the third part of the 10 is like this one right here, up in the corner, where it says stainless, and it has a bit of that whole object in it. So she's taking and layering drawings or items from the first set and the second set, and putting them together, remashing them up in a really beautiful way to make those designs. So yeah, the first 10 is just, I'm going to take my swing line stapler on my 6-inch paper, and I'm going to draw it from this direction, and then from that direction, and then I'll turn it over and draw it from here, and light it, and get light shadow on it. Yeah, and the second 10, I'm just going to take this old swing line. I'm just going to draw a swing line as accurately as I can. Any of these little ads on here. Load staples here with an arrow. That's going to look awesome, huge, right? Does that make sense? Yeah. All right. If there's no more questions, let's get started. Remember, wipe everything down. Let's keep ourselves super saturated in this COVID killer stuff.